Join us on our website at www.thegrandview.org and get more information about our show. There you can download our free book, Everything You Need to Know About Outdoor Painting. Let me tell you a little bit about canvases in general. And I love really expensive canvases. And my love for canvases is beyond normal. Okay, I love good canvases. But the reality is that when you're getting to small units, 8 by 10, 9 by 12, 12 by 16, the problem is canvases are a little impractical. Even panels that are covered with canvas is impractical. Because what I find is that when you take a painting and you make it that small, the sheer size of the canvas, the pores, become a problem. And if we look at older painters back in the 14th and 15th century, they normally painted on boards. But most of their paintings were smaller. So consequently, that was a practical thing. But as we get into the Renaissance, the problem at that point is that there were huge churches being made and big buildings and public buildings. And they wanted artwork to cover from floor to ceiling. Well, to get a piece of wood that size was impractical. So what they did was they said, hey, we could do it on cloth. It's lightweight. We can get it through the door, which is a concern with a lot of people who buy big paintings. How am I going to take that home? So being on a canvas, you could roll it up and take it in and unroll it, restretch it, and put it up. That's practical. Plus, also, if you put a board up that's bigger than 24 by 36, even if it's a masonite panel, it's very heavy. And so you stick a frame around that, you need 6 people to lift it up on the wall, let alone having a support in the wall to hold that up. So when you get that size, canvas is preferable. But when you get smaller, you're actually better off going to ampersand boards or masonite boards. Now, the issue is that they're very easy to make. And the way that I make them is that I go down and get a piece of chipboard. You don't make masonite anymore, but we use the word masonite. But you can go to any hardware store and you find somebody that's really good at cutting and you give them money and you buy a sheet of it. A sheet of it is like $16. And you can get like 40 panels out of it. And somebody who really knows what they're doing, they can give you 9 by 12s, 5 by 7s, 16 by 20s. I mean, they can give you all these sizes out of this one sheet. But you got to make sure they're cut correct, because then it becomes a problem in the framing. If your board's a little bit off, you got to go to custom framing, and then poof, there blows that whole thing on price. But if he can cut it so that it's exact, and you got somebody that you can work with, and almost every Home Depot will cut.
They do cut.
They do cut, but you got to tell them it's got to be right on. Then you go to the Rust-Oleum section of the hardware store. In some stores, it's behind a gate because of kids buying it. And you buy the white spray primer.
Oh, it's not gesso then.
Spray
No.
gesso or spray paint?
Primer.
Rust-Oleum.
Rust-Oleum Auto Primer. The stuff you paint cars with.
Oh.
Now, use your common sense. Gesso that you buy in a can isn't really gesso anymore. It's just latex paint. So it's like house paint. And that's basically what they use. It just needs to be flexible. Now, if you're buying oil prime canvases, you want to make sure that you seal the canvas first, because the oil that's on the primer will seep into the linen and rot the linen out.
Oh.
And so that's why oil prime canvases cost a little bit more. And then they put rabbit skin glue on, and then they put the oil on top of it. And then that way the oil doesn't penetrate the linen. And there's a lot of other benefits of that. And if, you can go to my YouTube video on canvases and you can learn more about this. But anyway, I digress. If you take the panel and spray paint it with auto primer, which is actually designed to be on cars, and I guarantee you the torture that your painting will go through will be nothing like a car goes through. So it's very, very permanent. spray that on the masonite so the oil doesn't penetrate the masonite board, and then paint on top of that. It's a beautiful surface, and you don't have to sand it. And you know, they say, well, the integrity, you're like an old-time master. You like talking about old materials and stuff, and now you're taking auto spray paint. But guess what? Gesso's new too. It's latex paint, invented in the 30s or 40s. It's plastic. There's no real gesso in that. Old gessos used to be made out of marble dust and rabbit skin glue. They're not using that anymore, right? It's latex paint. So you're already not using anything that has any integrity to it anyway. So you might as well just spray away on it. And you want to spray it so that it levels. Good coat. Biggest mistake with people who do the panels is that they don't put enough on. And you can see where it's thin. You want to put a heavy coat on, so heavy that it actually levels out, and then let it dry. The good thing is that it dries within a half hour. And so you could do this in the morning and then go painting in the afternoon.
How many
Again,
coats of those?
One good coat.
Just one coat?
All what you're doing is you're trying to create a surface that protects the wood from the paint. And some students, they paint directly on the masonite, but I don't recommend that because the problem with that is that the oil seeps into the panel. And when you do, it affects the paint, first thing. And then that oil inside the panel also rots the panel. So there's not archival. But all you need to do is seal it enough so that the paint can get through.
You put the primer and then you seal it.
No, you
with
just
oil
paint. You just paint on top of the primer, just like primer is used for.
Paint on top of the primer with a thick
Yeah,
coat.
yeah. Now,
Will you prime the back of it too?
no,
No.
you can. You can.
It's just a waste of paint. You're
It's
not
just
gonna
a
see
waste
the
of
back.
time, yeah.
Yeah,
Is it auto primer or just a regular?
It's
so you
auto
can
primer.
use for the-
It's white auto primer.
oh, okay.
You can use just regular primer if you want, but the thing is the spray Rust-Oleum auto primer is
Better.
pretty permanent.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the paint sticks to it beautifully. Okay,
Cool.
so that's a little extra tip.
Good.
And so when you're painting smaller panels, you want a smoother panel. That's the whole idea. So when you're painting on it, you're not getting all the pores, because then it's like putting makeup on a ugly woman with big pores. It's like no matter how much makeup you put on, those pores still show through.
Now, when you get the plywood, there's different depths of plywood. So you get the thin plywood.
Yeah, get it thin. That way you can stack it.
You're not saying plywood though, you're saying like
Masonite,
Hardboard.
hardboard.
Yeah.
Hardboard.
Yeah, it's hardboard.
It
It's
sort
like,
of almost looks greasy almost. It's almost.
Well, that's
Slick.
the oil, you don't want
That's
the oil.
tempered, you don't.
that's tempered. You want untempered. Yeah,
Untempered, okay.
untempered.
And tempered.
Yeah, you don't want something with a temper because while you're painting it keeps slapping you. You want the untempered one.
Untempered.
Yeah.
Untempered.
Yeah. And that's because the chemical that's inside the tempered actually affects everything that you put onto it, regardless of what it is. But anyway, that's also archival and way down. You don't need to worry about that in the future. But right now, and you could go to Home Depot and they actually have smaller panels. So they'll have big sheets of it, but it's somewhere in there they actually cut off smaller pieces. So you could start off with a smaller piece. You don't have to buy a whole sheet.
But they will cut so many cuts, I think 4 for free. But if you have a really nice person, they'll cut more for free.
Yeah, it's amazing what $1 under the table will give you. The thing is, it's not a bad painting, don't get me wrong, but the thing is, it's not a great painting because it doesn't have a focal point. It doesn't have an idea or direction. It's a lot of noise. It's like turning on a radio full blast. It doesn't have the subtleties that we want in a painting. And a painting is like playing music. If you hit the same note over and over and over again, the same intensity, eventually it drives you nuts. That's what happened. So you want to have a crescendo. You listen to Phantom of the Opera, and it's always this da da da, and it goes higher, and then it goes higher. That's what you want. In the Phantom of the Opera, the last note is never hit till the very end. And if you notice when they go through music of the, and then they always knock that last note at the end, because he knew well enough when he built the armature there had to be one note that eventually you work to. All of this stuff works to, and then at the end, music of the night. That last note in there is hit at the end. You wait throughout the whole thing to get to that note. And that's what you want in your painting.
Yeah, and I didn't know how to do that at first with all this.
Well, sometimes you just have to choose it, and you have to kind of work towards it. We have some examples of it today, but it's just too many notes on this. I noticed that you have the shadow of the basket back there, which leads me to believe that your light was actually almost further down.
Oh, it was actually on the side, not down.
Yeah, but it had to be somewhere lower to get
Oh,
that.
I hadn't thought of
Now, for the most part, light is always coming down on you like this.
that. Which it was, so how I got the shadow.
How did you get the shadow there?
I don't know. I'll have to reevaluate.
Yeah,
because
because the shadow should actually be further down inside here, not so far up above the... How
I
did that happen?
wonder it was troubling me. That shadow was troubling me all along.
Yeah.
And it would darken it, lighten it, try to change it, it was.
And then
that's what it
you've
was.
covered the basket evenly all the way across. I guess as they're kind of like grasses and stuff.
It's a pampas.
Yeah, and then you see how you shortened everything like, and they have this line going through. It would have been good if we actually saw the bottom of the basket here and then some grass coming up this way to kind of break the basket so you had a little bit of line in there. Your contrast between the light and shadow here are pretty strong and I know you're trying to do checkering back here, but the problem is it's so severe and the line is so hard on these that my viewer is going here for the contrast. The darkest part of the painting should be in here along with the lightest part. This is where the only part that you should have hard edges in.
And that's
You know?
what I was kind of aiming for, but yeah.
Well, I see that, and the basket kind of has that, but the thing is I dart over here because your hard edges out here. And so a lot of people will tell you, when do you use hard and soft edges? Because in classes they'll tell you, oh, you've got to have hard and soft edges, and it's like, yeah, when? I don't know.
I didn't even think of it being
Yeah.
hard edges.
Got to have the hard edges where you want the viewer to look.
Yeah, right,
Because when I'm looking at you, everyone else is blurry.
right.
Right? Okay?
It was a hard one.
Yeah, this was a hard one. Moving right along here. Who is going to take credit for that?
Becky.
Becky.
I'm not happy.
So you're not happy with it? Not because I said that way.
No.
Okay. So what were you thinking, Becky?
I was thinking, well, first of all, it took me 4 or 5 hours to collect the junk. And then I couldn't arrange it in my basket, so I just threw it on the floor. And then I got the basket, and then I just said, well, I'll put a cattail here. Well, I'll put something here.
Mm-hmm.
And just looked at kind of the stuff I collected and tried to incorporate it.
Yeah, so you looked at your things
Yeah,
and you decided to transport those things into your painting.
right,
And so this is a thing painting.
okay.
Okay? And the problem is when we paint things,
Everything is a thing.
that's right. But the thing is, if you don't have, the things are supposed to be there for something to happen to them. They show up and then you turn light on. When the light comes in, then we go after the effect,
Yeah,
not the things.
yeah,
Because
that,
we don't paint things.
yeah, but then I haven't quite grasped that yet,
You have at times.
sometimes.
Maybe by doing the homework this week, you'll actually like think about, okay, I'm not painting lipstick.
I'm painting.
The effect of light. Well, see, when in doubt, when you don't know what to do with anything, if you don't know what to do with anything, then do what people do when they don't know anything and then turn it into abstract.
Okay,
Abstract's usually like an undeveloped technique that is trying to say something abstractly. And if you get it really confused, you can confuse your viewer that you don't know anything, and they'll think like you're brilliant.
I know.
But you know down deep, it didn't take a lot to kind of figure that abstract out. It takes a lot harder to learn how to paint something. You tried.
Looks great.
You get a little bit of highlight there, it's so cute.
Yeah, I like this highlights there.
Yeah, but the thing is, the rest of the basket, the contrast between here is so strong.
Yeah,
Yeah, and the thing is, if you wanted to focus in on this, you can't have all of that.
right.
So you know, if try this as an experiment, right? I want you to look at me. Just look at me. Okay.
Yeah,
Now I want you to look at my eye.
okay.
So what happens with our brain is that when you are looking at something, and it's not directed, you see a lot. You observe something. But when all of a sudden somebody directs you to look at that, all of a sudden all that goes away. And all of a sudden the eye comes in.
Okay.
You know, it's like you focus in and you do
So
that.
by putting the things out on the floor, then I'm taking the things the way I see them on the eye and putting the thing up there.
That becomes a thing painting.
Yeah.
But if this is what you really wanted to happen, then maybe you should have painted a painting that just focused in on that. And you're telling the viewer, don't look at, I'm not even going to paint the rest of that. I want you to look at that. Of course, that has to be something to look at. And how you do that with lighting and shadow is how that pays off. So what I'm going to do is
After I got that done, I thought what would have been a nice painting is that oak branch in the front. Just to do that oak branch with the leaves.
and the scissors.
Yeah. And that
The
would-
scissors were
and
brilliant
then
because
that
it gave us a
shadow
scale.
and detail on the leaves, and that would have been a nice.
The scissors gives us that. So let me pull out a painting here that does what I
Yeah.
just said. So
That's a wonderful one.
this here is wonderful.
Or-
But what makes this really wonderful is the fact that we're not even really aware of anything what this is. I mean, at first we kind of look at it, it looks abstract, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we start recognizing things. There's enough here to remind us what, you know, those little plants that have the holes in them. We're all of a sudden kind of getting that. And then all of a sudden it's like, wow, look at that backlighting in there.
Yeah, and the way
And-
she has that blue coming up around, and then that goes on around the whole, makes your eye go all the way around that picture.
Yeah, no, so this pattern going up and coming back down. These hard lines bringing you back down again.
Right.
Look at this, okay? So but the thing is, what is this painting of?
Weeds doesn't matter.
It's really nothing. There's not anything that really is lit up. It's just whatever that is in there is lit up.
Your imagination gets to really work on that one.
Yeah, but the thing is you keep coming back to your core there. See, and if you think about now a Rembrandt, or really great masters, Caravaggio, they do this. Because what they're doing is that they're manipulating you to be part of the painting than to observe the painting. And so this is how a homework assignment should look.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Whose is that?
Mine, Sharon's.
I thought it was.
Sharon's.
But I like that you can kind of make out eucalyptus.
You know what it is. It's a close-up of fall stuff, right? Now, I told you to go outdoors and find a bunch of fall stuff, but I know that most fall stuff's like this, right?
And prickly.
And prickly,
I
yeah.
had to wear gloves.
So anyway, so she didn't let that stop her. She didn't make this little basket inside of her painting. She went in and just said, let it fly. This is my spot here. This is my stage. And then she put her Barbara Streisand on it, put that spotlight on, and like, boom, that has light. Now, the thing is, we marvel at it because of the beautiful lighting effect, not because she had beautiful things. I mean, there isn't anything in there that you'd want in your house. None of that stuff in there really makes for a good still life if you had it in your house. But the thing is, as a work of art, it's about light and shadow.
Yeah.
That's what we want to do. When I tell you we don't paint things, we paint the effect of light on things.
Okay.
And that's when that works.
I can see that.
So what were you thinking?
I was thinking I wish I had more time to finish it
You started this yesterday?
last night.
Beautiful. Now we know Sharon, she's been in classes a while, and we know she's kind of got to that point where, you know, she's pretty predictable. She's kind of fun to watch. But Sharon has had lots of nights where she's come to class the next day, and she's been kind of grumpy and miserable, and because, you know, she used to have a full-time job, so that she actually had to put it off, and she'd be painting at 2 in the morning, trying to get her homework done. But the thing is, she still would show up all the time. You wonder why Sharon didn't come out of the womb painting this good. And she wasn't even that good when she started with me. But one thing Sharon is consistent, and she's kind of almost got a meter in herself, where she just tells herself, I'm not going to go to class unless I have a homework assignment. And she stays up until 2 in the morning, right?
Not anymore since I'm not working.
Yes. So now she can produce that. But the thing is, it was that consistent dedication for that deadline. In my coaching classes, that's what's awesome, is that all of a sudden Saturday morning, you know you're going to call me at 9 o'clock And if you don't have a painting ready, it's going to be an awkward phone call for you to make. You know, you're going to have to come up with some extraordinary excuses, although I don't expect them. But the thing is, you know that my time is valuable, even if you're paying for it. You want to be able to be ready for that. So the students who have that coaching call have that in extreme. Oftentimes, some of you don't do the homework assignments, I don't know. I don't ask Bonnie for her homework assignment or put that intention, but if you're going to call me at Saturday for your coaching call, it's going to be awkward if you don't have anything to talk about. Where's your central focal point?
Well, it would probably be on the red flower. Maybe.
Okay, here.
Yeah.
Now that could be a central focal point as a color. That's fine. Color's fine, but it's not as good as a lighting effect. And so you could say, well, I'm planning on putting light on that red flower there. That would be a better central focal point. The thing is, you know, when if light got through here, you'd probably have to get light. So the only thing that's really missing in this is now the commitment of your central focal point and how you're going to light that up. So the next thing you would do, once you get this in, it's got great movement, okay? The elements are there. I don't know what they are, but if you told me they were leaves, I could find them. So if we started to define the leaves in here and start getting the effect of light and shadow in here and start nailing that, a lot of this stuff we could almost leave alone. Now, a lot of you who want to paint loose, and you look at artists and go, oh God, that artist paints so loose, I wish I painted like that. Oftentimes, they're working on a sketch like this. They just have a sketch, and then they define this area of the sketch and leave the rest of it alone. And what you think are purposeful brushstrokes are actually just the preliminary ones that were laid in because you needed to cover the canvas. So if you went in and defined this really beautifully, that's all you need to do. And also, a trick is if you define this really well and you choose not to do the rest of it, how much time have you saved? You focused on your main thing, and your viewer's not going to know that. They're going to think you're a brilliant painter. But you're just lazy. You just abandon it really early and let all those loose brushes, because look at how loose this is. There are a lot of people who want to paint like that.
She is a brilliant painter.
She is a brilliant painter. Okay, and then think about, if you do 6 of them this week, 6 homework assignments, you've got a series. And if you have a show, you've got your cosmetic series. And if you could actually think about that, like a Wayne Thiebaud, if you could actually think about that and say, you know, I'm going to do this as a series, I'm going to put it up on my website as my cosmetic series, you know what's going to happen? You're going to try harder. You're going to paint harder, and you're going to paint with intention. This is not just an exercise now. It's a goal. And if you paint something with a goal, you'll get there. Expanded instructional DVDs that feature an hour-long demonstration of today's painting and other paintings in the series are available at the Grandview by calling 1-800-511-1337. Join us on our website, thegrandview.org, and get more information about our show. There you can download our free book, Everything You Need to Know About Outdoor Painting, along with a free diagram of today's subject.